So there are three probable endings to Doomsday as of everything we've seen in July 2025. That's including, of course, Ironheart. You can even, talk about Doom and his relation to Mephisto while trying to rescue his mother. I don't think they're going in that direction, given that Ironheart was released in 2 weeks, and I don't think that Mephisto will have any sort of involvement in the MCU after the post-Secret Wars period. So knowing it's most likely premiering in December 2026, actually making its date and having a similar favorable VFX window for both Doomsday and Secret Wars, just like Infinity War and Endgame, we can start speculating with more freedom how this movie sets up Secret Wars. Now, obviously, there are major plot points some people have picked up since Deadpool and Wolverine. Last time we talked about the Nexus slash Anchor Beings last time coming to play and how Doom wants to stop these incursions, but also a very large indicator of what this movie is going to end up like. And this has been offered in the scene where Deadpool talks with Paradox about being a Marvel Jesus. So in one of the screens, in the Time Variance Authority, Thor is seen crying about Deadpool's sacrifice. Now, I don't think Ryan Reynolds or Hugh Jackman will play a huge role in Doomsday. Daniel RPK did state that they were going to play a minor role, but the inclusion of this scene can just be in the context that Thor is crying about another character instead. Let me elaborate. So Chris Hemsworth, he was recently in London, halfway filming through Doomsday, and another big sequence saw the Thing with the new Avengers member John Walker and Avengers ally the Falcon. Now, this is interesting because in the end of Fantastic Four First Steps, Reed did mention an equation that corroborates the theory of the multiverse, yet to defeat Galactus. He never actually tampers with it. That immediately shut down for now Reed's ties with the TVA, and of course his descendant being Kang slash He Who Remains slash Nathaniel Richards. But for now, even his knowledge of the Council of Reeds, you don't really know if he has actually contacted with them. We saw the Fantastic Four First Steps and what it actually implied for Reed's character and mindset coming into this movie, coming into Earth 828. But it shows that Doom might be the one to provide the Four with the technology to travel the multiverse, thus making sense if they believe in his hero complex and travel with him. And this is what we see in the Thunderbolts post-credit scene. Or, the incursions might have just gotten to Earth 828, and Doom is there to stop it. Now, the fact that the Fantastic Four ship arrives in 616 on the middle of an ongoing crisis where Monica Rambeau has disappeared on a rift in the space-time continuum might also be a plausible explanation. The space crisis that the Thunderbolts actually mention, and then, the extra-dimensional ship with 4 fins being the Fantastic Four entering Earth 616. Regardless, there's another clue in the behind the scenes for this movie, for Doomsday, that gives us, some notion of where we're going. When we see this video, you can clearly see sparks of lightning, which might indicate a character like Halle Berry Storm or Thor in the TVA. You can see the logo in the bottom. Now, Thor was confirmed to be the second lead character this week, next to RDJ, and probably Vanessa Kirby, Pedro Pascal, and Anthony Mackie. Characters like Yelena Belova and potentially Shuri or Damson Idris T'Chaka should only be main characters by Secret Wars. Although Shuri and Namor are most likely, just like Hickman's 2015 Secret Wars run, to be the first in their respective kingdoms to be aware of incursions in the 616 universe. With that being said, Doomsday will end in a similar manner to Infinity War, right? Not just because it's inevitable, but it also makes sense. The remaining heroes leave their Earth in the final moments of an incursion, leading to multiple deaths and destruction, just like how Reed designs the raft to escape and potentially regroup on another plane to recover the lost multiverse. For comic readers, we all know how this goes. Doom becomes Emperor and brainwashes literally everyone, takes Reed's family, and creates the Thor Corps. Now, here's what my version of the movie could look like. The ending should be, instead of surviving and becoming God Emperor Doom's pawn in Battle World, he actually dies. As the ultimate sacrifice for the TVA sequence, or to fight Doom, who at this stage is figured out by both the X-Men and the Avengers that he was tricking them both into fighting and of course stopping these incursions by his own dictatorship, let's just say. This leads them to let the raft escape, and Thor does the ultimate sacrifice. Now, I'm not saying that Thor will actually die in Doomsday, but in order for these resets of timelines that Kevin Feige has mentioned in a press interview last week, it's mostly obvious that the sequels that were planned after the Marvels flopped were Fantastic Four 2, Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 3, and Shang-Chi 2. Now, you can also make a case for Thor 5, since it's, still one of the most popular characters despite the box office failures with Thor Love and Thunder. But you can still see that, of course, in order for the MCU to move on and, these recasts to happen alongside a new young group of the X-Men, it makes sense if Thor dies after Secret Wars. There has to be, enough stakes so that we can believe in these stories, especially with the MCU's current track record. Now, I don't think that, deaths need to be implied, but for example, some of the minor characters that have been introduced in Disney Plus, despite, some of them making sense to carry on their stories beyond Secret Wars, I don't actually think that, of course, Doomsday will not be one of those movies where it's Infinity War, everybody's gearing up to fight Thanos. I do think that there will be multiple deaths along the way. Now, you can even include, and I really didn't want to do this, but you can include Sam Wilson. By Secret Wars, he might die. And that was something that really resonated with me after, Iron Man, Captain America, being, some of the characters that Kevin Feige was asked in that interview that, he might recast, because he did say the MCU is just like any other franchise. At a certain point, there must be fresh faces to carry over new stories and bring a sort of freshness into the MCU. Now, I don't know if I agree with this, but, you must understand Marvel's owned by Disney, and they have to start developing something that catches the audience experience with these movies and can actually be successful. I really would like to have a Captain America 5, but given, what happened with Brave New World and how the MCU is trying to elaborate this New Mutant saga, it makes complete sense, especially if you consider Franklin Richards rebooting and creating a new universe from scratch and resetting these timelines, just like 5G mentioned. You can see, X-Men being the main team from now on with a companion Avengers group, more on the back end of things. So let me know what you guys think about this. This is my theory on how Doomsday will end. It's not very well elaborated. I do think that some certain characters can die in order for this raft theory to become true. It's very, very based on time runs out. If you haven't read that comic, I will make sure to drop a link in the description. And yeah, I will see you guys next time.